Claire Dalton always kept her head down. The quietest woman in the room, the kind of person you forget after meeting. She wore gray sweaters, drove a used Toyota Corolla, and lived in a modest house with peeling paint and a dying porch light. No one suspected that this small-town accountant would one day vanish, taken with her $21 million in dirty Mafia cash. And no one would ever find her again. Welcome to Untold Crime Vaults, where we uncover the most shocking real-life stories hidden in the shadows of history. If you're drawn to mysterious disappearances, daring heists, and true stories that sound too wild to be fiction, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode. Now, let's dive into today's chilling case. A quiet accountant, a ruthless mafia family, and a vanishing act that stunned investigators across 2 countries. Claire Dalton worked in Montpelier, Vermont, the kind of town where gossip still spreads faster than news. She handled the books for a seemingly legitimate logistics company called Northridge Freight, which, unbeknownst to many, was a shell operation tied to the New England Maroney Syndicate, one of the most violent organized crime families operating on the East Coast. Claire wasn't just any bookkeeper. She was their vault. She knew where the money came from, how it was washed, and exactly how it moved through offshore accounts. No one would have expected a 44-year-old woman who brought her lunch in a pink Tupperware every day to outsmart a criminal empire. But Claire had been watching, planning, and waiting. In early 2021, Claire found a discrepancy, one she didn't report. A new ledger file, digitally encrypted, showed $6.2 million routed through a fake construction company in Delaware. The amount wasn't a mistake. It was hidden money, off the books, meant to disappear quietly into a larger laundering scheme. But instead of alerting her boss, Claire duplicated the data, encrypted it further, and started tracking every illegal dollar that passed through the company. Over the next 10 months, she silently compiled everything. Offshore accounts, ghost companies, bribed judges, even cash deposits hidden in safety deposit boxes under fake names. And during that same period, she made small transfers, just a few thousand at a time, to untraceable crypto wallets. She was laying the groundwork for one of the quietest and most devastating internal thefts in organized crime history. Claire began changing. Her coworkers noticed she started wearing better shoes. Her gray sweaters were traded for dark blue blazers. She started arriving 10 minutes earlier and leaving exactly on time. One coworker, Benji Keller, casually joked that she was seeing someone. Claire smiled, but never said a word. What Benji didn't know was that Claire had already purchased a new identity and a small property in Nova Scotia under a fake name. She paid for everything in cash. Meanwhile, Northridge's internal security team flagged inconsistencies. It was just enough to make her supervisor nervous. But in the criminal underworld, suspicion doesn't go to HR. It goes to someone like Victor Maroney, heir to the Maroney crime family, and a man known for making problems disappear. On April 12, 2022, Claire Dalton clocked out at 5:03 p.m. as usual. She waved at the receptionist, got into her Toyota Corolla, and was never seen again. The investigation began 2 days later when Victor Maroney's crew discovered that $21 million was missing from layered shell companies and crypto wallets, all accounts Claire had access to. At first, they assumed it was an external breach. A hacker, maybe, but the deeper they dug, the more it became clear. Claire Dalton did it, and she was gone. When word reached Vincent Maroney, the aging patriarch of the Maroney Syndicate, he didn't react with immediate rage. He sat in silence for nearly 20 seconds, then said only, She was never meant to know that much. To the mob, betrayal by an outsider was one thing, but betrayal from within, from a woman they never even saw coming, was intolerable. Within hours, they launched a quiet but ruthless manhunt. Fixers, hackers, ex-law enforcement, and street-level informants were all tapped. Claire Dalton had become the most dangerous kind of enemy, invisible and underestimated. While the Maronis searched from the shadows, law enforcement began catching wind of the situation from another angle. A low-level FBI informant embedded in a neighboring syndicate caught whispers of a ghost accountant who vanished with millions. That tip led to Special Agent Laura Cortez, who had been working for years to expose the Maroni family's financial backbone. When Cortez finally got access to a bank transfer log recovered by a confidential source, she was stunned. The account trail led through Estonia, Singapore, and finally into Canadian real estate. Every transaction was clean, subtle, and small, nothing large enough to trip alarms. This wasn't a smash and grab. This was methodical, brilliant, and terrifyingly effective. In the months leading up to her disappearance, Claire had been staging a second identity. She rented a storage unit 2 counties over, stocked it with non-perishable food, clothes, and backup documents. She sold her house under a trust. She even adopted a stray dog under the alias Marie Caldwell, just to build a paper trail for her new identity. Her internet activity never betrayed her. No luxury shopping, no suspicious research. She read paperback thrillers and listened to classical music. She paid for everything in cash and used encrypted USBs to manage the transfers. Claire wasn't just running from the mob. She was preparing to disappear from everyone permanently. In mid-May 2022, a real estate agent in Guysborough, Nova Scotia confirmed a woman named Marie Caldwell had paid $140,000 in cash for a small, off-grid cottage. The woman didn't talk much, wore sunglasses even indoors, and declined the welcome tour most newcomers accepted. Neighbors thought she was recovering from something, maybe grief, maybe divorce. No one suspected she had $21 million hidden in crypto wallets, stored across secure cold storage vaults, and safety deposit boxes in multiple provinces. By June, the Maronis had shifted tactics. They couldn't find Claire, but they could find those she left behind. Her old co-worker Benji Keller was found beaten and unconscious behind a bar near Montpelier. Another office worker, Stephanie Griggs, disappeared for 3 days before reappearing with broken fingers and a clear warning: stay quiet, stay gone. The Maronis wanted Claire found, and they were willing to burn down everything around her to make that happen. But Claire had no ties left, no family, no children, and as it turned out, no fear. By late summer of 2022, Special Agent Laura Cortez had compiled a complete profile of Claire Dalton's digital footprint, or rather, her lack of one. It was almost beautiful in a criminal sense. Claire had used multi-layered encryption, disposable wallets, and obfuscated transactions to hide the money. The stolen funds were transformed from dirty cash into clean assets: fractional real estate shares, precious metals held offshore, and cryptocurrency split across dozens of accounts. But Cortez found something else: a digital slip, buried in an Estonia-based exchange. One of Claire's early transfers had been made from an IP address pinged briefly in Maine, just a few miles from the Canadian border. Cortez sent a quiet task force across the state line, hoping to catch something. But by the time they got there, the trail had gone cold. Claire was always a step ahead. Victor Maroni, the Syndicate's heir, grew increasingly volatile. His father, Vincent, blamed him, not just for losing the money, but for underestimating Claire. "She watched you," She studied you. And you let her in, he snapped one night. Victor's response was brutal. He pulled all logistics operations from Vermont and ordered several former associates executed for perceived failures in loyalty or silence. The loss of $21 million wasn't just about the money. It was about power, reputation, control. Victor issued a standing bounty, $500,000 for Claire Dalton, alive or dead. Meanwhile, in the rural stillness of Nova Scotia, Claire lived in a constant state of quiet paranoia. She avoided town except to buy supplies from a small hardware store. She used gloves to avoid fingerprints, never visited the same store twice in a month, and kept a loaded shotgun beside her bed. But she was also changing. There were nights she stood on the cliffs near her cabin, watching the ocean and asking herself if she'd gone too far, not because she feared getting caught, but because, for the first time, she had everything she wanted and no one to share it with. The money bought her freedom, but it didn't erase the years of isolation or the dull ache of being invisible for so long. One morning in early October, Claire spotted a strange vehicle parked down the hill from her cabin. A black SUV with New York plates. It didn't belong, and it hadn't been there the night before. She didn't panic. She packed a single duffel bag, loaded her dog into the old pickup she kept hidden behind the cabin, and drove down a service road she'd never used before. Within 24 minutes, she had vanished. Again. By the time the SUV's driver made it to the front door, Claire was already across the province, heading for a ferry port. What the Maronis and even the FBI didn't understand was that Claire hadn't just planned an escape. She had built a lifestyle that could adapt to pursuit. 3 different identities. 2 more properties, one in Quebec, the other in Alberta. Each had cash, documents, food, and shelter. She had accounts in foreign banks under false names and contingency plans in case of emergencies. She could live like this for years, even decades, if she had to, and she was okay with that. By the end of 2022, the story of Claire Dalton, or rather, the idea of her, had begun to take on a mythological quality. In the criminal underworld, whispers spread like wildfire. Some claimed she had plastic surgery and was living in Europe under a new face. Others believed she had died in a cabin fire somewhere in northern Canada. A few thought she was still in Vermont, disguised as a waitress at a diner that served stale coffee and burned toast. There were no photos, no confirmed sightings, just a handful of cold clues and a lot of paranoia. The FBI quietly closed their active investigation, not because they found her, but because there was simply nothing left to chase. By early 2023, the Maroney family was bleeding from within. Claire's theft hadn't just cost them money. It had exposed weaknesses in their financial systems. The FBI, having dug deeper into their operations while chasing her, now had evidence of laundering, extortion, and even a judge on their payroll. Multiple arrests followed. Victor, now paranoid and unhinged, lashed out at his own lieutenants. He was eventually ambushed and assassinated by members of a rival syndicate, an act of vengeance disguised as justice. With Victor gone, the Maroney empire fractured. And Claire? She was still gone. Still watching. In a small coastal village near Prince Edward Island, a woman named Marina Ellis owned a tiny bookstore that rarely got visitors. She didn't talk much, and when she did, she had a strange accent no one could quite place. She walked her dog every morning at 6 a.m. sharp. She wore gloves, even in the summer, and never used a cell phone. The locals thought she was just a private person. But if they had looked closely at her eyes, the way they never stayed on one place for too long, they might have wondered what she was running from. But no one ever did, and she liked it that way. In March of 2024, a crypto wallet previously flagged by the FBI was activated. It sent $2.1 million to several children's charities in different parts of the world, all anonymously. The signature code embedded in the transaction matched a private encryption key believed to be Claire's. Special Agent Cortez saw it and smiled. "She's still alive," she whispered. And then silence again. To this day, no one knows where Claire Dalton is, or if that's even her name anymore. Some say she's waiting to die in peace. Others think she's just getting started, that the $21 million was never the end, but just the beginning of something bigger. There are theories. There are rumors, but no proof, no trace, no mistakes. Just a legend of the quiet bookkeeper who stole a fortune, vanished into fog, and left behind the ruins of a criminal empire. Sometimes the loudest crimes are committed in silence, and sometimes the deadliest weapon in a room full of gangsters isn't a gun. It's a woman with a calculator, a plan, and nothing to lose.